You keep treating kindness like a currency that should automatically appreciate. You treat effort as a lottery ticket that guarantees a winning draw. You sow attention, effort, emotional labor, patience, expecting the universe to behave like a well-run corporate reimbursement system. You submit a claim, you wait, and you assume something will eventually return to you, especially if you were good, especially if you meant well, especially if you showed up. But the emotional economy doesn't care about your intentions, and the world you're trying so hard to belong to isn't a cosmic vending machine where you insert tokens of kindness and receive affection, validation, or reciprocity on demand. You're sowing something, sure, but the soil you're choosing? That's where everything begins to fall apart. You keep giving in places where giving doesn't grow. You keep investing in people who run their relationships like a failing grocery store. Shelves empty, prices rising, no loyalty program, no gratitude. You keep donating your time and emotional bandwidth to individuals who treat generosity as an ambient temperature, something that's just there, not something that costs you something. And then you feel cheated, you feel betrayed, you feel invisible. But the truth is more uncomfortable. You're planting seeds in concrete and wondering why nothing grows. It's not that the universe is heartless, it's that your strategy is flawed. You overlook a simple reality. Effort only turns into value when the environment allows it. A seed doesn't sprout in asphalt no matter how noble your intentions are. A gym membership doesn't build muscle if you only swipe the card and never lift the weight. And validation doesn't appear simply because you've performed emotional labor, like a diligent employee waiting for a bonus review. You think the universe is unfair because you're mixing up two systems, the moral one you believe in, and the incentive structure everyone else is actually operating on. You live by the rule. If I sow something into someone, something should come back. But most people are living by, if it benefits me, I'll consider responding. If not, I simply won't. Not out of cruelty, out of human nature, out of limited capacity, out of self-interest wired by evolution, not by malice. And here's the part you avoid. You choose people who cannot give you what you're asking for. You select friendships, partners, co-workers, and social environments with a broken feedback loop, and then complain that the loop doesn't reward you. You keep throwing kindness at people who are emotionally bankrupt and expect moral dividends. But reciprocity requires the other person to have the currency of reciprocity, and you're dealing with people who don't. Some are overwhelmed, some are indifferent. Some have never learned how to give. Some simply don't value what you consider valuable. You're not bad. You're not delusional. You're just asking from the wrong places and the wrong people. And that's why it hurts. Because the universe isn't heartless. You just won't admit that the soil you chose was never capable of growing what you planted. You confuse effort with accuracy. You confuse sacrifice with strategy. And you confuse giving with deserving. But none of those are the same thing. The cruel irony is that you already know this. Deep down, you've always known where your seeds would dry out. Yet you give anyway, because giving makes you feel righteous, and receiving makes you feel anxious. You're more comfortable in effort than in reward, because at least effort is something you control. Now forget whatever you're dealing with today. Let's walk through the truth together. You like to believe your intentions are noble, but intentions don't stop inflation. In economics, when something becomes too abundant, its value drops. And in the emotional economy, the same rule applies. The more you give without limits, the less your giving is worth. You think your generosity should make you priceless, but the opposite happens. Your efforts become the equivalent of dollar store candy, always available, always cheap, always expected. That's the inflation effect. but you rarely want to see it working against you. You show up too often, too intensely, too emotionally ready to serve anyone who needs something. You respond immediately, adjust your plans, over-explain yourself, and fill the silence before anyone even asks. What you call being a good person, others start to experience as background noise, comfortable, familiar, constant, and easy to ignore. And the worst part? You don't even know you're doing this. You've been trained to believe that giving more makes you worth more. It's a philosophy straight out of misinterpreted self-help cliches, not reality. In real human dynamics, constant giving turns into invisible wallpaper. People stop noticing you, not because they're cruel, but because their brains adapt. Gratitude decays over time. That's the gratitude paradox. The more you do, the more invisible you become. The more you offer, the less remarkable your offering feels. You're not being punished, you're being normalized. In the workplace, the hardest worker becomes the one management leans on, not the one management promotes. At home, the person carrying the emotional labor becomes the one whose effort is silently folded into the daily routine. In relationships, the one who always understands becomes the one no one checks on. Because why check on someone who never needs anything? Your generosity becomes a ghost, felt, but never acknowledged. And although you feel regret, you still keep giving more, hoping gratitude will eventually appear like a delayed package. But that's not how emotional inflation works. Once value drops, you cannot revive it by increasing supply. You revive it by decreasing it, by cutting back, by creating scarcity. Yes, the same mechanism businesses use to raise the price of a product that's been overproduced. Demand returns when availability reduces. Respect returns when boundaries rise. But the truth is uncomfortable. You're afraid of scarcity. You fear what will happen if you stop giving. You fear being forgotten. You fear being replaced. And you fear that without effort, you have nothing else to offer. So you overcompensate, and your value drops again. This is why your emotional generosity keeps backfiring. You expect appreciation, you expect recognition, but you're planting so many seeds in every direction that none of them have time to root. You're performing kindness at a frequency higher than people can feel. And because humans adapt to comfort faster than they adapt to hardship, your kindness becomes the new baseline, not a gift. No, the universe isn't heartless. It's just consistent. It responds to patterns, not intentions. And your pattern is oversupply. What you call being consistent is sometimes just being excessive. What you call good energy is sometimes emotional overproduction. What you call love can sometimes be self-erasure wrapped in generosity. You are inflating your own worth downward. But here's the twist. The moment you pull back, even slightly, everyone feels the vacuum you've been filling. Your absence suddenly hurts more than your presence ever rewarded. Scarcity restores value. Boundaries restore demand. And those who were never capable of giving? They simply walk away, which is the gift you never realized you needed. You think the universe is rejecting you, but it's just showing you the true market price of your effort. Not to punish you, to wake you up. You keep operating under contracts no one else agreed to. Invisible exchanges, unspoken expectations, emotional IOUs you believe were signed the moment you showed up for someone. You think your effort automatically writes a reciprocal obligation into their life. You think being there for them means they should be there for you. You think listening to their stress at 2 a.m. means they'll remember you when you're falling apart. But here's the truth you keep resisting. There is no contract. There is no agreement. There is only your assumption. You imagine this invisible ledger where every act of kindness earns you points. But the other person isn't using your accounting system. Hell, they're not even aware it exists. And because they never agreed to the terms, they never feel guilty for breaking them. How can someone betray a contract they never signed? This is the architecture of disappointment, not malice, not betrayal, not the universe punishing you, but misaligned expectations pretending to be moral obligations. You think it's love. You think it's loyalty. You think it's mutual investment. But emotionally, you're playing poker while the other person thinks they're just hanging out at the table with free snacks. You're risking something. They're risking nothing. You're all in. They're just spectating. This is why you get hurt. Not because people are cruel, but because you're negotiating with ghosts. And the more you give under these invisible contracts, the more resentment builds. You don't notice it at first. It starts as a quiet irritation, a small ache when you realize they didn't notice how much effort you put in. Then it becomes a tightening in the chest, a subtle bitterness, a sense of being unseen. Eventually, it becomes a script in your head. After everything I've done for them. But the world doesn't operate on implied gratitude. It operates on explicit agreements. You want reciprocity, but you communicate in hints. You want appreciation, but you speak in sacrifice. You want connection, but you invest like someone who's trying to earn love, not share it. And that's the real problem. Your giving isn't pure. It's transactional, just hidden under the guise of selflessness. It's not greed, it's fear. Fear of being irrelevant. Fear of being abandoned. Fear of being ordinary if you stop performing extraordinary generosity. So you give and give and give, hoping the contract becomes real, hoping they'll eventually get it, hoping the emotional math will finally add up. But here's the catch. Any relationship built on invisible contracts eventually collapses under the weight of unmet expectations. And you know why you keep repeating this cycle? Because invisible contracts protect you from vulnerability. You never have to state what you want. You never have to risk rejection. You never have to admit your needs out loud. You just give and hope they can magically read your mind. It's safer, yes, but it's also self-defeating. Because real connection comes from clarity, not performance. From boundaries, not invisible debts. From honesty, not emotional bribery disguised as kindness. You think the universe is cruel because people don't reciprocate. But maybe the universe is just reflecting your lack of clarity back to you. When your giving is vague, your receiving will be vague. When your standards are unspoken, they will be unmet. When your expectations are hidden, they will be ignored. You're not cursed. You're not unlucky. You're not doomed to be the one who always gives more. You just misunderstand how human psychology works. People don't respond to what you feel. They respond to what you communicate. People don't reciprocate what you assumed. They reciprocate what they agreed to. Invisible contracts feel spiritual, poetic, morally superior. But in the real world, they're the fastest route to disappointment. And the universe isn't punishing you. It's just reminding you again and again that clarity is kinder than expectation, even when it feels terrifying. You keep thinking the problem is other people, their indifference, their selfishness, their lack of appreciation. But if you strip away the emotional fog, you'll find something far quieter and far more uncomfortable. Your boundaries aren't collapsing by accident. You're the one collapsing them. You're the one lowering the price of your presence. You're the one turning your time, energy, and emotional labor into an all-you-can-consume buffet. And people behave exactly as expected in a buffet. They take more than they need. They pile their plates too high. They complain even though it's unlimited. Excess invites entitlement. Scarcity invites respect. You want to believe you're being generous, but it's not generosity if it hurts you. It's not kindness if it erodes your self-worth. It's not love if it trains people to forget you're human. Boundary collapse isn't just a relational issue, it's a self-perception issue. When you don't think your needs matter, you stop protecting them. When you think saying no makes you selfish, you avoid it until resentment rots your insides. When you fear conflict more than you fear disrespect, you let disrespect slide again and again. You're not letting others walk over you. You're laying down the pavement. And over time, something subtle happens. Something psychologists rarely explain fully. When you let people take from you without limits, your own mind starts to devalue you too. Self-worth erodes not only because others don't honor your boundaries, but because you don't honor your boundaries. If you treat yourself like an afterthought, your brain will eventually believe you are one. The collapse begins internally. Externally, the world simply mirrors it. You can see this pattern everywhere in Western life. In workplaces where the reliable employee becomes the dumping ground for tasks no one else wants to do. In friendships where the person who always hosts, always drives, always organizes, becomes the one no one checks up on. In relationships where emotional labor is absorbed silently until the giver becomes both the caretaker and the scapegoat. The collapse always feels like betrayal, but really, it's misaligned incentives. You're rewarding people for your own self-neglect. You're removing every friction point that teaches others how to treat you. You're eliminating the natural boundaries that create mutual respect. And because humans learn from patterns, not declarations, your actions scream louder than your frustrations. When you overextend yourself, you teach people that you have no limits. When you tolerate crumbs, you teach people that crumbs are enough. When you sacrifice without being asked, you teach people they don't need to consider you. You think they're taking advantage of you. Some are, but many simply think you're fine, because you've trained them to believe you are. This is where learned helplessness sneaks in. You start believing you have no power to change the dynamic. You keep giving because you think stopping will collapse the entire relationship. You think boundaries will scare people away, and maybe some will, but those are the people who were consuming you, not connecting with you. Boundary collapse doesn't just harm you, it distorts the entire emotional economy. It makes relationships unbalanced. It breaks reciprocity. It removes the natural friction that allows respect to grow. It turns your presence into a utility instead of a connection. And eventually, when you burn out and withdraw, others feel confused. Not because they're cruel, but because they never understood the cost of what you were giving. You never told them. You never showed them. You never required them to meet you as an equal participant in the exchange. You think the universe is unfair because the people around you don't give back. But maybe the universe has been waiting for you to stop flooding the system with free energy, for you to create the scarcity, the boundaries, the friction that forces relationships to become real. Because here's the final uncomfortable truth. When you stop collapsing your boundaries, when you stop giving without measure, when you stop treating yourself like an endless resource, you don't lose people. You lose the illusion of connection. What remains is real. You keep saying the universe is heartless because it doesn't give you what you ask for. But pause for a moment and look more closely. Are you actually asking for anything clearly? Or are you doing what most people do, scattering vague desires into the air and hoping life interprets them correctly? You ask for love, but you offer it in ways that blur your identity. You ask for reciprocity, but you surround yourself with people who have no bandwidth to reciprocate. You ask for respect, but you behave as if you don't need it. You ask for clarity, but you hide your needs under layers of emotional performance. The universe isn't denying you. It's responding to the precision of your requests. And your requests are vague at best, self-sabotaging at worst. Think about it through a Western metaphor. A vending machine. If you walk up to one and mash random buttons, you don't rage when the wrong item falls. You know the rules. You know the system. You know you only get a clear result when you make a clear choice. But emotionally, you smash random buttons, unclear boundaries, inconsistent standards, self-sacrificial habits, and then feel wounded when the outcome isn't the one you hoped for. It's not the machine, it's your input. Your emotional life works the same way. You think you're being intentional, but you're actually operating through self-deception loops. You tell yourself you just want connection, but you pursue people who fear intimacy. You tell yourself you want appreciation, but you behave as if being appreciated doesn't matter. You tell yourself you want stability, but your actions reward inconsistency, the sunk cost fallacy in human form. You double down on situations that already showed you their outcome. You invest in relationships that have no return on investment. You cling to people who treat your generosity like an atmospheric condition, something that's always there, and then you interpret the disappointment as cosmic cruelty. But no, this is not the universe punishing you. This is you not understanding your own patterns. This is poor emotional targeting disguised as moral injustice. You're convinced the universe ignores your effort, but effort without precision is just noise. The world doesn't bend to vague desires. It bends to aligned action. It bends to boundaries. It bends to clarity. It bends to people who know the difference between what they want and what they tolerate. And here's the part you rarely acknowledge. Your suffering comes not from asking for the wrong things, but from asking the right things from the wrong places. Every disappointment is a misalignment, not a cosmic failure. Every heartbreak is a data point, not a prophecy. Every unmet expectation is a feedback signal saying, try a different soil. The universe mirrors precision. When you give too much, it reflects the imbalance. When you stay silent, it reflects the silence. When you tolerate chaos, it reflects the chaos. When you ask vaguely, it answers vaguely. When you misinterpret generosity as strategy, it exposes the flaw. Your internal narrative might whisper that you're cursed with bad luck, ungrateful partners, selfish friends, emotionally unavailable people. But look deeper, and you'll see the repeating structure. You're outsourcing clarity, hoping others will provide it for you. You're outsourcing boundaries, hoping others will magically honor them. You're outsourcing your vision, hoping someone else will hand it back to you in a form you finally recognize. But no one can do that for you, and no one is expected to. The universe is not a parent, it is a mirror. It reflects your patterns, amplifies your inconsistencies, and responds to the rules you demonstrate through behavior, not the pleas you make when you're tired and disappointed. Your life isn't falling apart because the universe is cold. It's falling apart because the requests you're making, the people you're choosing, and the patterns you're repeating are not aligned with the outcomes you want. And nothing changes until precision replaces hope, until boundaries replace excessive generosity, until clarity replaces invisible contracts, until self-respect replaces self-erasure. You think the universe hasn't answered you, but it has. Every time something fell apart, every time someone didn't reciprocate, every time you felt undervalued. Those weren't punishments, they were instructions. You've spent most of your life believing the universe is withholding something from you. Love, reciprocity, fairness, recognition. But now that we've walked through the quiet architecture of your patterns, you can finally see the truth with softer eyes. Nothing was denied to you. It was only misdirected. Your giving wasn't wrong. It was unfocused. Your effort wasn't wasted. It was misplaced. Your hope wasn't foolish. It was tied to people and environments that could never convert it into what you needed. The moment you shift from vague longing to precise intention, everything around you recalibrates. Boundaries sharpen the signal. Clarity restructures the exchange. Self-respect changes the entire emotional economy. The world mirrors what you demonstrate, not what you silently wish for. And when you stop sowing into the wrong soil, you stop mistaking emptiness for fate. So breathe. Let the noise settle. Let the old patterns fall away. What you want isn't impossible. It's simply waiting for accuracy. Good things grow where you choose with intention, not where you scatter out of fear.